Hey everybody, welcome back to the Ultramarine tutorial. We're going to work on some details now and finish up this model. Now I went ahead at the end of the last video and I finished up the paint work using all the techniques we covered in that first video to add some highlights and just finish up the blue areas so we're ready for detail. Now let's work on the eyes first. So we're going to take our red here. And then, I smooth my brush out a little bit on my thumb so that I can get in there and just real carefully get the eye, or the lens, because it's not really his eye. Again, fine brushes really help with doing things like this. So I got his lenses. Now while those dry, because I want to go back and actually use a wash to kind of blend the edge of that a little bit, we're going to go ahead and work on some of the silver areas. Now for this I do use it's a model air paint, and I've found out that it coats amazingly well. So if you just watch, it's just one brush stroke and your silver is on there. And we'll tone it down with some black wash to give it more of that bolt gun Space Marine look. And you could also leave it this silver if you want. This paint also works really well for dry brushing, and that generally all of the silver metallics work really well for brush painting from the Model Air, Vallejo Model Air series, and I'm pretty sure, I'm trying to remember if the Game Air has this same sort of, super, basically, it's a really good coat. It makes painting a lot faster. And it goes on really thin. I'm going to paint this whole gun here because I want to show you the plasma, how we're going to do the plasma area. I might just do everything around. Well, no, I've got to put a wash on it, so we got to do the whole thing. Again, this is tabletop, so we are focusing on speed. And we'll go back and we'll hit some other areas to give this layer a little bit of time to dry. Because you don't want to put wash on wet paint, because if it's still wet, it's going to reactivate, it's going to mix with your wash, and you're going to have a mess that you're eventually just going to have to repaint. Don't lick your brushes with metallics. It's not a good time. All the other colors, pretty safe. But metallics, I don't know, they're probably safe. They just got a really funky taste, so I don't recommend it. Some of these little parts under there. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you how I do the bends in my Space Marines when I'm doing them quickly. I take a medium gray, so this is cold gray from Vallejo. Just put it in here, and what happens is I go back with my black wash and I can put it over this ribbing. Whoops, that's my silver. Put it over my ribbing, and it's almost like I just went back and highlighted it from a base black so I can get some detail. So we'll do this one little leg part as a example, and then we'll move on to some other parts, and then I'll finish up, take some pictures like I did with the other video. All right, gold. This stuff is amazing. This is a resin gold. Now I've already shaken this up a good bit before I started the video, but when you shake this stuff up, you want to look for the little pieces of metal moving around at the bottom, and that lets you know that you've got a good mix of the paint. Now this is not water soluble. You're going to need alcohol to thin it down. Luckily the alcohol is much cheaper than the paint, and it's really hard to open because it dries. There we go. It dries and it forms like this metal crust. The other thing you want to do when you're using this paint, I'll just put this on my palette so you can see it, is you want to use really cheap brushes because it eats paint since it's resin based. But the cool thing about it is, as far as golds, it goes on super thin, super easy, and super quick. And when you're painting details, you don't want to go back and do a ton of coats. I messed that up. Whoops. We can go back. We're going to add some wash to the pads. We'll do the eagle in the front too. Plus we got to highlight these layers. We're just going to use some silver to highlight them with. The bad part about using crappy brushes to do this is that crappy brushes are crappy, and you know, bristles go everywhere. Alright, probably get the underside here too, because we don't want our trim to just kind of abruptly stop along the shape. You see how easy this stuff coats? Let me see if I can get a better close-up here. Look at that, that's just one coat. It's on good. It's nice and shiny too. Let's go ahead and do his eagle. Again, being careful with this stinker of a brush. It used to be an okay brush, but again, using this the resin paint, you're gonna eat brushes, so you don't wanna use an expensive brush with this stuff, because it needs that alcohol to clean it up, and the resin, it dries so quick that you're never really gonna get it all off of the brush. The last little feather up there. All right, nice, super shiny, awesome gold. Now, what I do when I rinse my brushes out after I'm done using this stuff, make sure you put your caps on tight, because the medium, the resin, is surprisingly thin and it will get through the cap. So I just take the bottle, stick my brush in here, rinse it real good, and then take my wiping towel and pinch it real good. You can see the gold that comes off even with all that alcohol rinsing out. This is a synthetic brush, and that's one of the reasons it's super cheap, is that it's not natural fiber. All right, let's do the scorpion green for the plasma gun. I'm gonna lay down the first layer for it. So I'm just gonna lay this over the coils, the plasma coils. This paint, it coats really thin. It's a nice color, but you're always going to need a couple coats with it. It stinks, but you know, for speed painting, you're only doing a tiny area, so you can do a couple of these. It's not like you're painting the entire Marine. Now probably with, he's got the little specialized backpack here, this thing, you know, probably go ahead and paint this thing green at the same time, so I can do like a little plasma generator look. And then all these little areas I'm going to go back and paint silver, maybe some of the straps and the gray. But for the sake of time and for the sake of examples, I'm just going to do the one. All right. Black wash. Actually, let's start with the black wash. We'll do that around the eye. And to do that, the wash brush, the liner. I described these in the last video, but they're kind of like a fountain pen when you're unloading wash. And we don't need a whole lot around the eye, but it's going to give us that little bit of depth that we want for the lens. I'm going to add just a little bit more. And if we get too much, the cool thing about washes is you can always use the brush to kind of soak it up. Here, I'll demonstrate for you guys. Let's get a lot of wash in there. See, look, side's gone. Wipe it off. Use the dry brush and kind of pull it out. Wipe it off again. Pull a little bit more out. Just dab it out. And see, we've got our shadow around there. And when that dries, we'll go back and we'll add just a little touch of a highlight. All right. Let's see if our silver is dry. It's pretty dry. It's a little bit tacky, but we'll go ahead. We're just going to add a lot of wash here. Washes, when you're painting armies, especially commission painting armies, are your friend. Pull out all those little details. You can put them on thick. You can avoid all that hand shading by just layering them on. And they kind of hide mistakes too, so I like them for that. Alright, so now we have our gun. We're going to leave this line here because we're going to use another color ink for the plasma coil. And you can go on, you can put, if you want your guns darker, you can add an extra layer of wash if you want once it's dry. But for the sake of time and speed, we're going to stay with the one layer. Now that ribbing we were talking about before, go in, add wash, bring that detail back out so we don't just have a flat color there. And again, just slathering it on. And this little brush does, it helps because the tip closes up when it gets wet, so you can get in there and get those details. There we go. All right, our gold should be dry. So let's take our Earthshade, another famous wash from Citadel. And the top on this one comes completely off. Same wash brush. Then hitting that gold to add some definition to that little crest. So now we got some shadow in our gold. I'm gonna do the same thing here, a little place where I kind of went over on my gold. I'm gonna hit that with some black here in a minute and add my definition back. All right, got our wash on. Let's do that little white pip in the lenses of the eye, since those are dry now. So just working back and forth through the areas. I got my white. I want a real fine point. I want to make sure that the paint's coming off. And then just a tiny little pip in the back of the lens. Give them a highlight there. The most detail this little marine's gonna have. Again, another little pip. So we got our mean looking lenses there. Let's do one more coat of this scorpion green. See, 2 coats, pretty good. Get a way more solid base color with the 2 coats. Make sure I hit the edges. Try not to touch where the wash is wet, because we still got some wet wash in here. Let that dry for a minute. We still got wet wash here and here. Go ahead and paint some of these other little silver areas. Hose pipes, things like that. Making sure to dressed and ready for war. Give him some more definition. So for all these things, I'm going to go back and paint silver and put wash on them. Oddly enough, the editing for the video took longer than it did to actually paint the rest of this marine. He took probably about 30-45 minutes to fully complete with the blue. So an hour, you know, to paint him up in total probably, and that's a pretty good amount of time for a hand painted marine. Now if we were airbrushing, man, you'd get a marine done in under 30 minutes. And we'll do some tutorials on the actually we should probably do the same paint schemes and just discuss how we would paint them with an airbrush and how we would paint them with a paintbrush, because the airbrush certainly changes the way you think about painting. You have to plan a lot more before you start painting. You don't just go for it. Planning starts when you're assembling the models and getting them ready. All right, green ink. There we go. Black green ink from Vallejo. Now you can use this stuff on a wet palette. If you do, I recommend that you use it quickly, because the water will mix with the medium in the ink and it will cause it to fog when it dries. I'm not exactly sure why, I just know it happens and that you should avoid it, because it doesn't make your paint look good. So this is the black green ink over the scorpion for the plasma cells, and my black wash is still wet here, but that's okay. You see how it soaks into the cracks there? And just like with the wash on the eyes, you can put it on heavy, and if it's too heavy, you can always use the brush to soak it up. So too heavy in the corner here. I'm just going to take the brush and dab it, wipe it off. Now we got our plasma coil. All right, we have a little bit of a dry spot here on the shoulder pad lining. I'm gonna go back with my detail brush and fix this little edge here. And clean that up. And I'll take our silver and we use that as a highlight. For me and metallics, I always like to end with a silver highlight because it's like the white light is bouncing off the gold surface and giving a nice ping of light. It's a little quick additive. You don't have to do it for tabletop, but it's nice. They're still wet with the wash here, so I'm gonna add a little highlight on the skull and go back through here, and you can just kind of rake your brush over the feathers. Add a little bit of silver highlight on the ends of the feathers here. And you don't have to go and highlight each one, just kind of pull a line across them. So it just gives them a little bit more definition. That would be everything that you need to know to finish this guy out. Now I'm going to go ahead and before I upload the video, I will finish him up and take some pictures for the thumbnail and maybe add them into the end of the video so you guys can see him fully finished. But if you got any questions, as always, please feel free to leave a comment down below. I'd be happy to answer them. And we'll see you guys next time.